So how do you create a brand that truly represents who you are and the products you sell, as well as building a business that you can scale online? That is what this podcast will help you do. My name is Henry Kaminsky Jr., and welcome to the Brand Doctor Podcast.
Let me just make this statement loud and clear. Jersey's here, Jersey's here.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another Brand Doctor Podcast episode. Today, we're going to be talking about protecting your business. And is your business protected properly? I was at a mastermind group meeting, I would say about 3-4 weeks ago. And one of my mastermind fellow members is an attorney who helps businesses form and helps them protect themselves in many, many different ways. So without further ado, I want to introduce my man, Bob Bluhm, to the show. What's going on, Bob?
Hi, Henry. Things are good. Good to be with you.
That is awesome. Well, listen, the talk that you gave at our mastermind meeting was this podcast episode was a result of that. That's how good it was. And I remember running to the back of the room and saying, you got to come on the show because we have to share your message to my audience and help them protect themselves and their business. Right. So that little story you told in the beginning of your presentation was very moving. And I wanted you to share that today. And then on the other end of that, we'll get into some of the things that we could be doing to protect our business properly.
Sure, certainly. Well, I'm a lawyer and have been for a number of years, about 30 years. And I spent the first half of my career as a trial lawyer. I sued people and companies for a living. I defended companies and people for a living. And most of the time, it's a case where one company is suing another company and the loser writes a check and it's no big deal. Life goes on. But this one particular case that really changed everything for me was a situation where I was defending a company that had really done something wrong. And the company had fired some guys because of their age. The company thought they were too old to do what they wanted them to do. That's illegal. You cannot do that. It's not criminal, but it's a civil, it opens you to civil damages. And so the plaintiffs in this case were individuals, and that was a little bit unusual. They had a great case. They had been wronged. They had lost their jobs. They had lost their income. They had lost their pensions. And they were suing for damages and restitution for their losses. Well, they had a great case, as I mentioned, but because we were much better lawyers, we won the case. And, we were high-fiving, the defense team was high-fiving in the courtroom. And then I went outside the courtroom and I saw the plaintiffs and their wives and their children, and they were all huddled together. They were weeping, all of them. They were saying out loud, what are we going to do? How are we ever going to keep our house? How are we ever going to retire? We've lost our pension. We've lost our income. We've lost our jobs. We're never going to get another job at this age that'll pay anywhere near what that job did. And they were devastated. And at that moment, it struck me that this was simply wrong. It wasn't a game anymore of who can win the case using this trick or that trick. These were real people who were really hurt. And it was wrong, and I was part of that wrong. And at that moment, I decided I'm not going to do this anymore. And I took everything I had learned about suing people, suing companies, and I use it now to protect people from lawyers like I used to be. So I now practice and have for the last 15 years what is called asset protection law. And that is designed to minimize taxes, protect you from overpaying taxes, I should say, to protect you from lawsuits, and to protect you from, ultimately, estate taxes after you've built a business. So that is why I do what I do.
I love it, Bob. And we are going to dive deep into how to protect your business properly right after this quick little message. If you're a business owner who feels your branding isn't truly representing the value that you deliver, check out this free video training that will help you level up your brand's messaging and online presence so that you can start attracting higher quality clients. Visit www.uniquedesigns with a Z at the end, not an S, .net/level up my branding. All right, Bob, let's dive into this. So what are the common mistakes that entrepreneurs make, and they might not even know they're making it when they're forming their business entity?
Well, one of the biggest mistakes I see is people just starting out. They're so excited to get the business going that they start out and just begin the business. In other words, they are a sole proprietorship. Sometimes people don't want to spend the money to set up a corporation or a limited liability company, and that's a very big mistake. That's failing to understand how important having a protective entity really is. Because as a sole proprietor, you and the business are one. There's no difference between the two. And when they sue your business, all of your personal assets are at risk in addition to any business assets. Or if they sue you personally, then you are liable as well. Your personal assets are at risk and your business assets are at risk. And so by setting up an entity of some kind, whether it be a corporation or a limited liability company, now you separate your business from you, and that dramatically reduces your risk.
Got it. Okay, so how does one know, do I file under LLC? Do I file as an S Corp? Or I shouldn't say filed, form. Form is the word.
That's fine.
Yeah. How do we break that down?
Really, this is something that they ought to consult an attorney about. Because they at least ought to talk to their accountant. And one other mistake that I would make or mention, Henry, is the failure to have good professionals on your team right from the very start. Of course, you want to have a business plan. If you're starting a business, you want to understand exactly what your projected revenues are going to be, what the risks are going to be, but you want to have a good accountant on your team. You want to have a lawyer on your team to make sure that the money is being accounted for. These are some of the biggest mistakes I see, that people just are so in such a hurry to make money that the money comes right in and right back out the back door because they don't have good accounting, they don't have good systems. The same thing is true in terms of liability. They expose themselves to liability unnecessarily, depending upon what kind of business it is. And if you would just consult with a lawyer, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Do you see any pitfalls in that? Your lawyer, who has years and years of experience and has seen lots and lots of businesses, can advise you, watch out for this, be careful about this, let's get a document in place to protect you, etc. So have good professionals on your team.
That's like step one, right?
Yeah, it really is.
Now, we had an interesting conversation when we were down in Tampa about the services these service providers that are out there, like LegalZoom.com. And Bob, before meeting you, I was sending all my clients to LegalZoom to get formed and so on. But there was some discrepancies that you had mentioned to me that I wanted to address to my audience so that they don't go down a rabbit hole and then they get stuck and they get caught. And then, oh man, I have to redo all of this. So can you share with the audience some of the just things that you should be paying attention to if you decide to use a platform like that, and why that platform doesn't necessarily do you justice, and they should much more seek out somebody like yourself if they're going to do it the right way?
Well, and that's true, Henry, because LegalZoom is a platform, and I don't want to pick on LegalZoom. There are other online services as well, but the thing that's lacking with these is the understanding of what you're really doing. I mean, what they do is present a number of choices to you. Do you want this or that? Do you want to be manager managed or member managed? Do you want an LLC? Do you want a corporation? How do you want the LLC to be taxed? And unless you understand what the consequences of making those choices are, then you're kind of just throwing darts. You're just guessing. And these consequences can be serious. In other words, you click the wrong box, and suddenly you're paying 15.3% more in tax than you otherwise would need to. You click the wrong box, and suddenly you've exposed yourself to significant liability, even though you think you're not. And so, the fact is this: there are really 16 different kinds of LLCs, different variations, different combinations. And unless you understand exactly what kind of LLC is going to be appropriate for your business, then really you have really no idea what you're doing in choosing this over that. So once again, it's good to seek professional guidance. If you're serious about your business and you're going to put time and effort into this business, and so many people pour their hearts and souls into their business, wouldn't it be wise to make sure that you're setting this up correctly in the beginning and not taking undue risks?
I'm happy you brought that up, because you could apply that thought process in many different ways inside of your business, right? And this is why I love having somebody like you that does this, because if I have a question, I have a human being that I could reach out to. It's not like I have to Google it or research it myself and then get myself more confused than I already am, and then have to backpedal. That takes a lot of time, energy, and eventually money, right? So,
yes.
Right. So to have somebody like you that is going to be there to answer those questions and to give you more of that clarity so that you're making the right decision. I mean, there's so much value in that.
Well, there is. And the reality is this: when you're starting a business, it takes so much effort to get that business off the ground. It takes, you think about it constantly. You're in the shower, you're sleeping, you're waking up at night, and you're doing nothing but thinking about the business. And, your focus should be on the business, generating revenue, building the business, not trying to become a lawyer. I mean, that's not trying to become an accountant. You need to offload those tasks to somebody who can do them very efficiently and very quickly and very professionally as well.
Now, Bob, you had showed something on your slide deck when you were presenting to us down at that mastermind meeting. And it was something about how the document was signed. If they sign with their name versus the business name, you could get caught with your pants down pretty bad. Can you describe that scenario, please, so our audience can get a better understanding of what I'm talking about, and so that they could go back and make sure that they could double check that document to make sure it's set up right?
Yeah. Something just as simple and as innocent as signing a contract. What could go wrong? Well, plenty could go wrong, because just one simple thing. If you sign a contract with your name, Henry Kaminsky, now you've become a party to the contract, which means that if the other party to the contract thinks you did not fulfill that contract in every respect, then they have the right to sue you personally as a result for breach of contract. And as a result, your personal assets can be at risk. So instead of exposing yourself unnecessarily to that kind of liability, we would want to have an entity, let's call it an LLC, and let's call it, Kaminsky Enterprises LLC. And now when you're going to sign a contract, you want to sign Kaminsky Enterprises LLC. And now the LLC is the party to the contract. You are not. And your personal assets now are not at risk. Only the assets of the LLC would be at risk.
Wow. See? Something that simple. How many times have we signed contracts with our name thinking, yeah, that's what we're supposed to do, right? And having that be not such a good idea.
Not such a good idea. That's right.
Wow.
But it's so simple; it can be overlooked, and that's one of the things that good counsel can help you with, because the idea of a good lawyer is not just to set up the entity and send you packing; is to continue to educate you on how to use that entity. What are the advantages that you now have? What have we given you that's going to give you a tremendous savings in taxes, how to operate the company properly so you have limited liability. As a result, you have all these advantages. We continue to educate you about the entity and how you and your relationship to the entity. Yeah.
Now, let me ask this, because I hear my audience saying, Henry, when are you going to ask this question? What does something like this, what kind of investment are we looking at? I know it depends on the business and what you actually have to do, right? But if there is some sort of, what's the word, range that you could share with us, what's this cost us? Like, what is this? I don't like to use the word cost, but what are we going to have to invest to make this right? So can you share that with us so we have an idea of what to look at?
Sure, and it's usually less than most people would think. It's generally going to be around $1,000 to $2,000, somewhere in that range, and that would include filing fees with the state. Typically, it would include, if necessary, a registered agent, which is required by all 50 states. So, really out the door, probably more like $1,500 to $2,000 when we include all those other expenses that go to the state and other third parties. So the most important thing to realize is that is your first tax deduction. And the key to paying lower taxes is to get as many deductions as possible. So every business expense, really, if it's for the purpose of the business, can be deductible and should be deducted, which means you're not going to pay any tax on that money. So the actual true cost becomes much, much less.
It makes total sense. Can you share, with the time we have left, because we're talking a couple minutes here, is there 3 tax deductions that you can share with the audience that are typically overlooked?
Okay. One is a home office deduction as a result. Most people who begin their business at home, and especially during this COVID lockdown, most businesses retreated to your home. And as a result, the home office deduction is a very significant deduction, because what it basically means is if you're running a business in let's say a spare bedroom, you take the square footage of that bedroom and make it a ratio against the square footage of the house. Let's say it's 20%. Now, 20% of your mortgage or rent payment is tax deductible. 20% of your property taxes are tax deductible. 20% of your utilities are tax deductible. It's a wonderful tax deduction. That's one. Another one would be overlooking the ability to minimize what are called self-employment taxes. Now that you're an employee of yourself, or you're self-employed, you're required to pay both sides of the self-employment tax. If you're a W-2 employer, your employer is paying half. You're paying the other half. That's the FICA, the Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid tax they're withholding. Now you're responsible for both. But setting you up with a correct entity allows you to minimize that self-employment tax significantly. So those are 2. Probably a third deduction would be, once again, startup expenses. If you keep good records, good receipts, you can write off all the expense that went into starting this business. And some people say, well, I don't have a business yet. How can I write off the expense? You can go back about a year prior to setting up the business and capture all of those expenses. So if you had an expense for the business plan, you had an expense for maybe buying QuickBooks recommended by your accountant, the cost of setting up your entity, all of those are tax deductible. So 3 good deductions that we should not overlook.
Bob, wow. 20 minutes and you just dropped a ton of bombs and a ton of value. This is what happens, guys, when you get people on the show that know what the hell they're doing. So, Bob, tell us where people, because you could work with anybody really, right? Cross country, or do they have to, right?
Yeah, as clients come to me, I mean, entity formation is something that can be done all across the country, and we're happy to help people wherever they may be.
I love it. So, Bob, where can people get in touch with you, say they need your help with this stuff?
They can reach us at info@assetdefenseteam.com. Once again, that's info@assetdefenseteam.com. That's our website. If you'd like us to contact you, you can go and fill out a simple form there with some contact information. We'll be glad to get in touch with you, see if there's a way we can help you.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Short, sweet, to the point, and super helpful. Bob Bluhm, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
You bet, Henry. Thanks.
Hey everyone, this is Henry Kaminsky Jr. again, and really quick, I want to invite you to a one-on-one consult with me right now if you're looking for the clarity and focus you need to build your brand. Over the past 13 years, I've served hundreds of entrepreneurs that have great products but struggled tremendously with articulating its value to their ideal customers. You didn't get into business to just change a few lives, did you? Your ideal clients need you. And when your brand has precision-crafted messaging coupled with beautifully thoughtful design that sounds, looks, and feels like you, they'll know you're the perfect match for them. If this is something you're struggling with, what I want you to do right now is pause this audio and go visit www.uniquedesigns with a Z at the end, not an S, .net, and book your one-on-one consult call with me. Remember, the quality of your brand will determine the quality of your clients, and the quality of your clients will determine the quality of your life.